What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Another video means another dopamine high, because I had the buy sound that feels something. And today we're back at it with another review. For today's review, we are taking a look at the 1000 Toys Emile from the Noble Team series that they are doing. And this is the 4th out of the 6th one. So after this review, there will be 2 left. That would be Kat and George. And obviously, I've taken a look at Noble 6, Carter, and June. So if you haven't seen those videos, by all means go check them out after watching this one. And just like with June, this was one of the other members of Noble Team I was heavily anticipating, because I just love Emile's design. And even if you got rid of the skull that's etched onto his helmet, I just love his design with all the equipment he's got going on. I love that big old knife. His design is just solid. I love the color scheme, black and red, or black and gray and red, just goes very hard in my opinion. So I can't wait to show y'all and take a look at this figure, because there is a lot to break down, very much with any 1000 Toys figure that we've looked at. And at any point during or after the video, you do realize you want to pick up this figure for yourself, starting off with the 1000 Toys website for $200, and then we have SIDESHOW collectibles for also $200, $180 off of Amazon, and $204.99 on Entertainment Earth, and then for $229.99 off of the Big Bad Toy Store. And one thing with the Big Bad Toy Store moving forward with this release and the rest of Noble Team, it seems on the website the prices have increased, but if you've pre-ordered any of the figures before this price increase, you'll just be paying for what the price was at the time of purchase. So I'm lucky enough to not have to pay for those increased prices, because obviously I'm still waiting on Kat and George. But for those who were considering about picking up these figures off of the Big Bad Toy Store, just know that they're going to cost a bit more now. And that's pretty much everything I got for introduction. So with all that said, let's open up this bad boy. And starting off with the packaging, and this is our standard 1000 Toys packaging with a nice big old photo of the figure, the title, and the special golden exclusive edition sticker. And then on the side there's just a whole lot of nothing except for the Reach logo, and the same could be said on this side, but we do get to see Emile's knife, which is nice. Then in the back we have a bunch of mumbo jumbo licensing stuff, I'm assuming, and all of that. So not the most exciting packaging in the world, but that's not why we bought this figure. So let's open it up. And when we open up the box, it seems like everything that should be here is here. And obviously with every 1000 Toys figure, when you open up this box, you do get an instruction manual on the figure. And this instruction manual pretty much just goes over everything that is included with Emile and what to do with those features that are included, such as swapping and mounting weapons, movable parts on the figure, all that good stuff, which we'll go over in the video obviously. And then on the back is just a summary of everything that is included with this figure. So visually, just like the rest of Noble Team, Emile came out looking amazing. He's jam-packed with details, and I wouldn't expect less from 1000 Toys. And starting off with the sculpting work, like I said with all the previous releases, and most likely will say with Kat and George, 1000 Toys nailed the basics, such as basic line work, layering, and paneling for the armor. And when it comes to the specifics that make Emile special, 1000 Toys also knocked those out of the park. Starting off with the scratches on Emile's helmet, they could have just painted a gray silhouette and called it a day, but they actually made it look like Emile had a field day with a knife on his helmet. And then there's Emile's right shoulder, which looks great, especially with that knife, which unfortunately, spoiler alert, is a decoration. There's the shotgun shells on his wrist. Each shell is individually sculpted, and they even sculpted the primers, which I find absolutely crazy. There's the charges on his chest and waist, and then the 40mm grenades around his waist. And 1000 Toys even got the primers on those, which again, hats off to 1000 Toys. And then there is the pouch on his thigh. As for Emile's paintwork, it's almost perfect. I want to say it's about 85-90% accurate. Emile's overall paintwork does ride the line between clean and well worn. Like I've said in previous videos regarding Noble Team's appearances, it looks like Emile just put his armor through the wash. Some details that stood out to me consist of the worn paint on his shoulders, biceps, and right thigh, and then the UNSC printed on his back plate and knees. And fun fact, the UNSC print on his knees are actually supposed to be on the calf armor below the knee pads. And then there's the warning signs on his back plate, thighs, and calves, and then the UNSC logo on his pouch. And then there is just two details that 1000 Toys just does not address at all when it comes to Emile's paint job and design. And the first one being the yellow stripes on the charges on Emile's chest. I know it's a small detail, but it's something I did notice, and that's the only thing missing. The charges are supposed to be a dark color, it's just there's no yellow stripes. And the second detail is that Emile doesn't have any of his Spartan lights, which I also did notice with June's figure, and I don't know why 1000 Toys stopped painting them, because we did see them painted on Noble 6 and Carter. And when you look at the promotional stuff for Kat and George, they don't have their Spartan lights painted either, so it's weird that they only did it for 2 of the 6 members of Noble Team. So overall, I am mostly happy with the appearance of Emile. Sculpt wise, he's amazing. They got down so many details and I love it, and I can say that about the rest of Noble Team so far, and I really hope I can say that about Kat and George. And as for the paintwork, it is 90% on point. There's just those minor inaccuracies that I did mention, and they don't ruin the figure. They don't, make or break. It's not like they're completely altering the design of Emile. I think the most in-your-face inaccuracy is the lack of Spartan lights, because Emile has dark colors, and it's really easy to notice when the bright blue is missing from the dark color palette. And it was with reviewing June that I did realize that there's this trend of the sculpt work being amazing, nearly on point for these figures, and then the paint work is where the minor inaccuracies really come out. And it isn't the end of the world with these inaccuracies. I mean, they are inaccuracies at the end of the day, but they don't ruin the figure. They don't completely alter the design of this character who has an established canon appearance. It's just something that I pick up on because I have a really big Halo hyperfixation, and when I document / analyze the figure, I quite literally compare it to the in-game model. I look at all these reference photos and screenshots, and even when I'm doing gameplay footage, I look at the character and I just pick up on little things, and it is what it is. It's a curse of mine, and maybe some of you appreciate that I pick up on these. Maybe some of you are thinking that it's a little too deep and I should just take my own advice and be like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily ruin the figure, because it doesn't. And yeah, so that's my little side tangent on the visuals. Emile looks great. Moving on. And starting off the articulation with the head region, we can rotate the head 360 degrees, and then we can have Emile look up and down a decent amount. And the same could be said about the range when he sway his head side to side. And when we take that good old range and articulation, we can rotate his head in a spherical range of motion. And then moving down to the neck, we can sway the neck back and forth a good amount, while also being able to sway the neck side to side. And similar to the head, we can rotate the neck in a spherical range of motion as well. And moving over to the arm, we can rotate the arm up and over 360 degrees. And then we can have Emile bring up / open up his arm a okay amount. And here is that same range of motion, but with the arm inverted, and the range is still alright. Then here we have this shoulder joint that gives Emile some extended reach, which is always nice to see. Then on Emile's right shoulder, there's this joint for the shoulder plate that you can actually rotate 360 degrees. And then the armor is also mounted on a ball joint, so you can get some swivel out of that as well. And then going down to the forearm, you can rotate it 360 degrees. And then we can get this amazing elbow bend that allows us to exceed the 90-degree mark. And then we have the hand, which we can bend 360 degrees and bend the wrist however we please. Then for the torso, we can't get a full 360-degree rotation, but the range is still good nonetheless. And then we can get some decent range swaying the torso side to side. The same could be said about the range when we sway the torso back and forth, and all that range and articulation allows us to get some nice spherical range of motion in the torso. One thing that I actually really like about this figure is that the charges on Emile's chest do manipulate. They're made out of a softer material, so they can move accordingly to how you want to move his torso, so they're not always in the way. And this also does apply to the arm articulation as well, if you want him to reach over his chest or something like that. It's just really nice to see, because there are Spartan designs out there that are awfully bulky, and they do kind of get in the way of the figure's articulation. And whether that's the engineering of the figure or just simply the design of the Spartan is based off of whoever you're getting that figure from. But I really like how Thousand Toys thought about that, because these charges are big and they are, you know, center mass, and that does affect how Emile holds his weapons, and them being made out of this softer material that can be moved and adjusted does make him holding rifles and stuff like that very much easier. So I do really appreciate that. And then of course we have the waist piece that can move in accordance to the torso or the leg, so they don't necessarily hinder either part of the body's articulation, which again, very much like the chest piece, is appreciated. And then moving down to the leg, we can rotate the leg 360 degrees, and we can pivot the thigh separate from the waist. We can actually get some pretty good splittage here on Emile. By no means a full split, but it is good range nonetheless. And then when it comes to the knee, we can get this amazing knee bend. And when it comes to the boots, we can rotate them 360 degrees and bend the ankle however you please. And then you can also pivot the toes and the toe armor on the boots as well. And just to rip the band-aid off, like I said earlier, the knife is a decoration, it's not an accessory. And if there was any figure to make the knife an accessory, it would have been this one. This knife, obviously any Spartan can wear it in the multiplayer, but this in the story was Emile's knife, and it sucks that we can't use it as an accessory. And just like with every other Thousand Toys figure, we have swappable hands, starting off with the closed fists. Then we have the energy sword hands, and then we have the trigger finger hands, and then after that we have these holding hands, and then finally we have these more open palm expressive hands. And then for our first weapon, and the only weapon if you got the standard edition of this figure, and that is the shotgun. And Thousand Toys knocked it out of the park. Just like with the in-game shotgun, it is jam-packed with details. Some specific details that stood out to me that I believe Thousand Toys knocked out of the park consist of the tactical rail, the shroud, the texture on the handguard and the grip, the flashlight, the magazine tube, and various other buttons and screws that we see throughout the shotgun. And as for the shotgun's paint job, just like its in-game counterpart, it's pretty simple, being made up of a variety of grays with some black splashed around. Now, unfortunately, Thousand Toys did skip out on some of the smaller details that we see on the shotgun in game. These details consist of decals and lights that I believe help break up the grays and black that we see on the shotgun, kind of, you know, give it some life, some character. Honestly, I shouldn't be too surprised, because this is a trend that I'm noticing with all of the weapons that Thousand Toys has given us. And if you want to mount the shotgun on Emile's back, you can do so with the peg and peg hole system, one of the most simple systems of all time. Obviously, you take the peg of the shotgun and plug it into the peg hole on Emile's back, and it fits in all nice and snug, not too loose, not too tight, just right. And now Emile doesn't come with any sidearms, but you can access the sidearm peg holes just like with any other Thousand Toys figure. And you know, for this example, we're obviously going to use his shotgun because that peg does work, and it fits in all nice and snug, not too loose, not too tight, which is greatly appreciated. So if you have the Magnum from June, or you know, further down the road, if you have the Magnum from George, you can mount it there. And just like with the June figure, that pouch on his other leg is removable and does grant you access to the peg hole there. So if you want Emile to have two pistols or anything else that you can fit in that peg hole, by all means mount it there. But I think it's kind of cool that they allow us to take this pouch off. Again, I personally wouldn't, because you know, this is a part of Emile's established design, so you know, why change it? So overall, I am pretty happy with the shotgun that we were given. It has an amazing sculpt, jam-packed with so many details and an almost perfect paint job. Obviously, they got down, you know, the body paint, you know, the variety of grays and black. I really would have liked to see those smaller details, but it doesn't necessarily ruin the accessory, because they got, you know, what was the main focus of the shotgun's appearance. And then for our second weapon, for those who got the exclusive edition, we have the energy sword. And out of all the exclusive editions, I think that this is the most appropriate weapon so far for obvious reasons. And beyond the energy sword, if Thousand Toys was going to give Emile another weapon, I thought it would have been the grenade launcher, but Cat is getting that, which I'm completely fine with. So the energy sword, yes, again, makes sense. So as for visuals, it's the same exact one that we got with Carter. So if you already have the Carter figure, you know what to expect. And if you did see my Carter video, you know how I feel about the energy sword. I think it is a nearly perfect looking energy sword. The blades are made out of this nice transparent blue, while being broken up with this solid white to help give off the illusion of the energies flowing through the blades. The handle is made up of a nice silver and black, and Thousand Toys was sure to sculpt in some details. And you know, these are small details that you normally wouldn't think about, but it is appreciated that they did make it onto this accessory. My only issue with the energy sword is the tips of the blade. They are flat. I assume Thousand Toys did this so the blades were less likely to break, but I find it super distracting. And unlike Carter, there's actually a way to mount the energy sword on Emile. It's just inside his rib cage. So besides the distracting flat blades, very happy with how this accessory came out. And there's one last feature that I saved last for this segment. So like we saw with June, Emile's thigh pouch is removable, so if you want to put any sidearms there, you can do so. But Emile has another part of his armor that is removable, and that is the attachment on his helmet. And I just find it really interesting that Thousand Toys is giving us the ability to remove and swap parts of the Noble Team's armor. These guys have canon established appearances, so why would you want to change them? So this left me thinking, does the ability to remove and swap these armor attachments foreshadow more Halo figures, preferably nameless Spartans that we can mix and match accessories with? And I surely hope that is the case. If not, I mean, it's cool that we have this feature, but I'm not going to be taking advantage of it anytime soon because I don't want to change how my established characters look. And here we are at the turntable segment in the video, pretty much where I go over what I like, dislike, pros, cons, strengths, and weaknesses, give my general thoughts and opinions about the figure, give y'all something to bounce off of, and just go down in the comment section below and get a conversation started. And I most likely will reply to y'all's comments because I clearly love talking about this stuff. And with this segment, I typically like to kick it off with the sour or negative stuff just to get it out of the way, because I don't like dwelling on the negative any longer than I already have to. And just like with the rest of Noble Team so far, and hopefully to continue, there's not a lot of bad and there's tons of good. In a perfect world, it'd be no bad, all good, but we don't live in a perfect world. And the things that I would consider an issue about this figure are very minor and don't necessarily ruin the figure. They are the smaller details that I did point out earlier that are missing, such as the yellow stripes on the charges on Emile's chest and the misplace of the UNSC logo on the knee pads. They should be on the calf armor right below the knee pads. And then of course the smaller details that are missing from the shotgun's paint job. Now again, don't ruin the figure, they don't ruin the shotgun. They're just things that I noticed because I love Halo and I look at anything Halo under a magnifying glass and get super critical about that stuff. So don't let my hyperfixation ruin this figure for you. And while working on the video, the visor for Emile's helmet actually popped off. Now, the only reason I'm not completely upset about this is because it just pops right back on. But I guess from, you know, articulating his head and having my fingers have that little bit of pressure on there, it slid off. And again, it's not the end of the world. It pops right back on all nice and snug. So as long as, you know, you're not manhandling it, it shouldn't be a huge issue. And oh, how could I forget the one thing that should have been a no-brainer for 1,000 Toys, and it was the fact that Emile's knife is not an accessory. It's a decoration, just like it was with June and Carter. I mean, if there was anyone to, you know, give a knife to, it was, you know, the character where part of their personality was that they had a big sharp knife, and it just kind of a bummer. I really wish 1,000 Toys would give us a knife. And then getting into the positives, which outweigh the negatives by a lot, which is always a good thing. And starting off with the visuals, the paint and sculpt work is amazing. Yes, I did mention there are two inconsistencies with the paint job, but you know, 98% perfection is way better than anything below it, honestly. But you know, it just because there's two things missing, or well, one thing's missing and one thing is incorrectly placed, it doesn't ruin the whole figure. This figure looks great. He's jam-packed with details. I couldn't ask for a better looking Emile figure. And then getting into the accessories, there's a bunch. The swappable hands is always appreciated. The energy sword looks amazing, and the shotgun is obviously, you know, the thing that everyone's going to be looking at the most, and it looks great. The sculpt work is amazing. They got down so many details. Yes, it would be nice to have those little tiny details that they didn't paint on painted onto the shotgun, but you know, I can still sleep at night knowing that they're not on there. It is shotgun, just sculpt wise, looks amazing. And then getting into the articulation, and just like with all the other figures in this wave, and hopefully for the ones soon to come, the range is amazing. 1000 Toys is sure to give us tons of range in every part of this figure's body, which is always appreciated. I would obviously be bummed out if this $200 figure had shit articulation. So moral of the story is that this is a very good looking and good feeling figure, and the accessories are pretty solid. I know I'm seeing some people talk about online that they wish this figure came with more accessories, especially seeing how many came with the Halo Infinite 1000 Toys Master Chief. So I don't blame them. More is always welcomed, but honestly, if we started asking for more, they'd probably be charging us more, and Big Bad Toy Store is already doing that without giving us more, so I'm happy with what we got. And that's pretty much everything I have on Emile. I thoroughly enjoyed reviewing this figure. Tons of fun being goofy with, you know, making fun of his fucking death, and, you know, going over every little thing that this figure has to offer and comparing it to the in-game model, because I have a uber Halo hyperfixation, and hopefully that doesn't get too much in the way of reviewing this figure, because I try to look at it as not just a Halo fan, but also someone who is just looking at an action figure. But I don't know, hopefully I'm not being too much of a Halo autist for y'all. But with all that said, I do hope you enjoyed today's video. A like and a subscription would be greatly appreciated, and don't worry about commenting. I get it, it's a lot of effort moving those fingers, but if you do want to bounce off anything I did say in the video, you are more than welcome to, and I most likely will reply to your comments, because I love talking about this stuff clearly. And don't worry about the bell, we both know that shit is broken, and if you want to see more content like this, there's plenty of it on the channel. I've reviewed a buttload of Halo the Spartan Collection figures, so if you want to see me talk about those, you can go watch that. And if you haven't seen already, I have reviewed Noble 6, Carter, and June, so if you want to check those out, by all means. And obviously when Kat and George come out, I'm going to review them as well. And if you love other franchises such as Star Wars, Alien, Predator, Alien vs Predator, or Warhammer, I have videos on that stuff as well, so you should go check that out. And with all of that said, please have an amazing day and stay hydrated. It's important.